Hey, I think we are ready to. Okay, see the Halak Gemara. We are on Daf Ayin Beis Amud Aleph. Today's Daf is Daf Ayin Beis Amud Aleph. And the Gemara tells us, the Mishnah told us, two cases involving Taruvas of carbonas. There was one case where a carbon got mixed into a group of carbonas got mixed in Isuri Hana, such as a Shor Niskal. The Mishnah says that it's not possible. Then the Mishnah discusses animals that it would be also to be brought on the Mizbeach as a carbon that got mixed into carbonas. But they're not also no. So they're also not bottle. And the Mishnah gives an eight how to deal with it. The Gemara asks that in the Maseches Torah, the Mishnah already tells us that if even one carbon of Isser got mixed into many carbonos, even if one animal that's also to be makim on the Mizbeach got mixed into many carbonos, it's also Bekalshin. But what do we need our Mishnah for? So our Gemara tells us that our Mishnah is needed to tell you what the eitz is. How do you deal with it? And the Gemara, and our Mishnah says that you wait until they get a moment and you point to them. Now, what about when it's also bano? So our Mishnah said that even when it's also bahano, like Ashur and Niskal, it's not bottle. So the Gemara tells us you would have thought that only when it's Asr Bahana, it's not bottle, but maybe where it's not Asr Bahana, it would be bottle. Or on the flip side, maybe Dafka, if it's not gonna Asr Hedjit, if it's only gonna Asr for a carbon, it won't be bottle. But for a Hedjit, maybe we will be bottle. Then the Gemara asks, even this halacha that if it's Asr Bahana, it's not bottle. We know that already from our mission of Avodah Zarah that tells us that if something that became Asr Bahana because of Avodah Zarah got mixed into other similar items, it won't be bottled. So that takes us to the very top of Daf Ayin Beis Amud Aleph Trichi. In fact, we need side the Mishnah in Avodah Zarah and side our Mishnah here in Zevachim. The Imei Hasam, if we only had the Mishnah of Avodah Zarah, Havamina Chulin. Rashi changes this to Chulin. I would have thought, yes, Chulin, no matter how many items of Chulin have to be destroyed because the Rosh Hashanah, so be it. But in our Mishnah, we were talking about karbanos. We should throw out 10,000 karbanos because of one issue that got involved in it. So that's why our Mishnah has to tell us that it applies for hektish as well. And if we only knew our Mishnah, that's talking about hektish, you know why we're so makbid to throw out all these karbanos because of one isser? Because it's most to bring an animal of Avodah Zarah on our mizbech as a carbon. But maybe chulun not most. Ema isura no live to liberuba. Maybe an isra no will be bottled beroiv shricha. That's why you need side our Mishnah in Zevachim inside the Mishnah mechuris, inside the Mishnah of Avodah Zarah. Frankly, but why taka isn't it bottled beroiv? V'nivta liberuba, as Rashi says, it says in the pasuk acharei rabban lahatais. If you're going to tell me that there's a concept that a dover choshev isn't bottled, what makes it choshev? So now the first symptom that the Gemara is going to discuss that should make something choshev that would prevent it from being bottled is if it's a dover shebeminyan, meaning it's not something that's sold by the pound, it's something that you sell individually. But there's two levels of that. There's one level where something that's so choshev, like a diamond, you never buy a diamond by the pound. It's always only sold individually. But then there are certain things that sometimes they're sold individually, but sometimes they're also sold in bulk, such as animals. You could buy an individual head of cattle, but sometimes you'll buy a whole herd. So the question is that considered a davar choshev that won't be bottled? Zog to Gemara, here we want to learn in our Mishnah that the behemoth is a davar choshev, it's not bottled. So hanicha leman davar kol shadaki lemana sheninu. It would be very good, according to the Madamar holds, even if sometimes you count it, it's still a davar choshev that's not bottled. So you have over here beautiful animals like that. But according to the Madamar holds that the only type of item that you don't, that's not bottled, is an item that exclusively is sold by the number. Michael Behemah, how are you going to explain our Mishnah why Behemah is not bottled? The Tanan we learned. If somebody had bundles of tilson that were klaya kerem, meaning they were isuri anah, what do you do with all the isuri anah? Turning on to ayin beis, amid beis, you burn them all. Isuri anah is burnt. How do you know it's burnt? Rashi says it's marumas in tukdash. It says pen tukdash by klayim. Tukdash is a nutrikon of tukad eish. What happens if it was this arvu b'acher? What if this isur anah got mixed with others? Kulan nidilku. You destroy them all. Divrei Meir. So Meir seems to say that these tilson are a davar choshev, and they will never be bottled. So even if they got mixed in to others, they have to all get destroyed. But the Chachamim yalu be'echad u'masai. If you could overwhelm them by 200 heter to one of Isser, then it would be mevatel. So you see clearly the Chachamim hold it's bottled anyway, even if it's a davar choshev. Shayir Meir Omer kol shadaki limnois mikadesh, and since you count tilson, therefore it's not going to be bottled. The only thing that are choshev enough that bittul won't work for is elashisha devar malat 6 items, and Rabbi Kiva Meshiva 7 items. Meilohein a goyze ferach, a certain special type of nuts from perach, v'rimoni badan, and a certain type of pomegranate from badon, the chaviyas susumos and sealed barrels of wine, the chilfei trading and pieces of beets, the kilchei kruv and stalks of cabbage, udalas yivonis and Greek gourds. And you're given Moshe of kikra shel balabais, even individual breads that a balabais made. Now, where won't they be bottled? A royal arla, if they happen to be arla, then they're arla. Then we mean if they're arla, they got mixed into something else, it won't be bottled and answers everything. A royal kla'aker and kla'aker. Now, the itmur Allah. Now, trying to explain Reb Meir. Reb Meir said kol shadaki limnois is mekadesh. So there's a machlokes what Reb Meir meant. Rabbi Yochanan said Reb Meir meant eshadaki limnois shenidu. The only thing that's not bottled is if the only way you ever sell it, buy it, is by counting it. Therefore, that would exclude an animal. But according to even if sometimes you sell it in a bundle, but sometimes you count them individually, that's enough to make it a davar choshev, that it wouldn't be bottled. So therefore, who holds that even if sometimes you count it, it's a davar choshev and it won't be bottled, you can explain our Mishnah that that's what it's speaking about, by something that you sometimes count like a behemoth, and therefore it's not bottled. And Rabbi Yochanan, a behemoth should be bottled, Michael Meimer, because it's only not bottled if it's only ever counted. Omer Papa, hi Tana the Litrik Tziyasu. The Tana of our Mishnah is not Rabbi Meir, it's not Rabbi Yehuda, it's a new Tana, the Tana of the Bryce of Litrik Tziyas, the Omar who said, turning on to Ayin Gimel Amid Aleph, Kol Davar Sheyesh Boy Minyan, anything that you could even count occasionally, Afilu B'derabanan Lai Bottle, even if there's an Isser Derabanan, it won't be bottled. Okay, we'll stop here, but I just want to point out, we learned in Amid Aleph that Orla and Klein, Yisur and are bottled in 200 to 1. Where did this number 200 to 1 come from? The Torah says we know Truma is bottled in 100 to 1. And the Truma is only Isra Achila. There's no Isra Anah. So Rabban said that Vibalt, Orla, and Glakerem are Isra Achila and Isra Anah, then it would require double the amount to dilute it out. Now, where do you know that by Truma it's 100? Because it says a lashon of Tuktash by Trumas Meiser. Trumas Meiser is actually 1/100th of the whole pile. Because the Levi gets Meiser, which is 1/10. And then the Levi from that 1/10 has to give 1/10 to the Kohen. So you see the Trumas Meiser is 1/100th of the total Kri, and that's what's Matir the Kri, and that's where we get from the Truma in order to be Mavatlit, you need 100 to 1. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we will finish Davar Gimel, and Be'ez Hashem tomorrow we will learn Dav Ayin Dal.